topic of tonight is about the finders. And the reason why I have this topic is because I don't know, randomly I was looking for where the finders were last found. Like where was the main guy last located? And I found out that he was located in uh, Culpeper, Virginia. I was there last night in Culpeper, Virginia. For 2 nights I was there, and just exploring the town. I don't know. This was like in 1997, so I didn't find anything. But and I'm pretty sure the head guy, Marion Petty's dead. He was born in 1930, so that would make him like 103 years old or something like that. So he's probably dead. Yeah, 103 or 93. I don't know. Anyway, so I kind of hit a dead end with that. But while I was doing the research, I came across the actual FBI files, the FBI Finders Files, Part 4. And I'm going through it all, and I've always thought this, but I don't think they actually were pedos. I don't think they were. I think they were being framed as one, as that by the actual pedos, the satanic people. They were trying to pull like a Saul Alinsky type deal on these people because I think these guys, these finders guys, were the actual CIA. They're the ones actually doing the intelligence operations. Like if you look into them, like what they were actually doing in this book called The Game Caller by Toby Terrell, who was one of the finders. He describes Marion Petty, and this is where I wrote this like I don't know like 2 years ago, and I start off with kind of aggressive, but I just want to preface this by saying I think all the Z-Gate stuff, you can see it here, spelled weird. I think all that stuff is real, 100%. I think this place had tunnels, 100%. I think they did this. This guy was definitely dead, one of these things. And I also think she did those things. And they did all kinds of rituals and stuff. Anyway, I'm just to preface this, so that it doesn't look like I'm trying to protect pedophiles or something. I think these guys were the exception. They were framed for this. Anyway, it's also they're kind of like hippie-ish, so some of the stuff might sound bad, but I don't know. I'll get into it. The first off, I don't really think the intelligence agencies at the higher up positions really give a shit about if pedophiles are running something or not. I bet you most of them are pedophiles. You can see in the WikiLeaks that Robert Mueller was working with Epstein. He didn't give a shit. He was a blackmail thing. And Robert Mueller actually hand delivered weapons grade plutonium to Russia. Hand delivered it as the head of the FBI. The hypocrisy is massive. No one ever talks about this anymore, but that's in the files. Hillary did the same thing. Plutonium, it's really radium. They were giving radium to Russia for favors. But anyway, I think this scene in this movie, The Law-Abiding Citizen, Gerald Butler describes the head of the finders the best. He says something. Here's what he says.
Well, I was never here, and we never spoke.
Tell us what we're dealing with. Shelton was a spy?
Look, spies are a dime a dozen. I'm a spy. Clyde is a brain. He's a think tank type guy.
Clyde's a brain. So I paused the copyright. But Marion Petty was a brain. He's actually even better than a brain, this guy.
His specialty was low-impact kinetic operations.
Just a hell of a fancy way to say that he kills people.
We kill people. He figured out how to do it without ever being in the same room.
So he's a brain. He's like a think tank all by himself. Come up with crazy stuff to like take over places without people even knowing that he took over the place. Well, this Marion Petty, like you can't really teach this, but this Marion Petty guy figured out how to teach it. That's what the CIA would be really interested in. That's why I think this guy He started the CIA. This is the real CIA. Anyway, here's the description of the guy. He would do these like consciousness expansion games in the 70s and 80s, where he would, here's an example. This is one of the games Marion Petty would call for the people that would listen. Okay, I'm calling a game for each one of you to go on a trip. Pick whatever place you want. Stay gone for at least a month. Get out of DC. Pick some spot where you are on your own. On day 1, imagine you are 1 years old. On day 2, 2 years old, and so forth until you get to the age you are now. At the end of the time, have a celebration and come back and make some money while you're gone. Bring back the surplus. Excuse me. Put some pressure on yourselves. It's tough being a little kid in a world that's designed for big people. Just walk around and think like a little person. Get rid of those notions you got from believing other people and stick to what you have learned on your own. Everybody got that? And then if you actually did that, I think your consciousness would expand tenfold. In the 80s, when they didn't have the internet and shit, that would be crazy. There's no cell phones, there's no internet. Your consciousness wouldn't expand, I think. And he was doing this all the time, to the point that they literally call him the game caller. And the guy, Marion Petty, his background is he was the military driver for all the famous World War II generals and a few presidents, including Patton, MacArthur, Marshall, Eisenhower, FDR, before they were presidents, and others, Bradley, Arnold, yeah. And they were all 4-star generals or future presidents. And he drove them around while they were in DC during World War II. He knew all these people, all these guys on first name basis. He knew all their wives on first name basis because he had to drive their wives around too. He also said that the wives really controlled them. Not the wives are what they were doing everything for. So like subtly, the wives controlling the generals, the most powerful men in the world. He was indirectly privy to how the highest levels of U.S. government and U.S. military operated, and these guys liked him. Like they kept him as a driver. So I'm sure he could put some favors in, right? He would like drive around OSS guys, drive around like before the CIA even existed. He was driving these dudes around. Before the name CIA even existed. He did that for 20 years, and then he started calling these games. I think all the child trafficking stuff about finders is either overzealousness because of like the satanic panic, I guess, or it was a satanic, like the actual satanic people were trying to frame them because they actually are a force of good. They were a force for good, just way ahead of their time. I suspect that the real Central Intelligence Agency was a creation of Marion Petty and his very high-level U.S. military contacts. He wasn't recruited by the CIA. He started it. Everything shown on TV, movies, Langley, online, on the CIA website is all deception. Think about it. They're a deception agency. Why would you put what you're doing online if you're a deception agency? Sleight of hand. They have the CIA website. I bet you everything on there could be false, could be made up. You put all that stuff out there, so people looking. Everyone's looking this way, and you go that way. It's a Kansas City shuffle. Sleight of hand. That's how sleight of hand works. You get everyone to look some way, and then meanwhile you're doing something else with your other hand, or you're like pulling a card out of your sleeve or something. Whatever. That's what they were. Why wouldn't the CIA do that? They're a deception agency. So everyone thinks it's like Langley and like secret agents and shit. No, it's the finders. These dudes that had their consciousness, their spiritual consciousness was massively like above everyone else's. That's how they would think. They would think big like that. They wouldn't think like secret agent man hiding behind lines. No, they would they would just like be in an abandoned building and just tap their phone line or something. I don't know. Like it was a lot simpler. They didn't think like grand secret agent 007 shit. Uh, yeah, like I even I was about to talk about this. Uh, to steal, I kind of learned this on accident, but one time I was at like my local uh, friendly market or whatever, and I got a candy bar. And for some reason, I put the money down, the cash, and I grabbed the candy bar and I grabbed the cash at the same time. I didn't realize I grabbed the cash though. It was just like I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I walked out and I was like, wait a second, I didn't even pay for this. And it was like that dawned on me. They didn't see that I took the money because I didn't realize that I took the money. If I realized it, I bet you they would have noticed. It's like a subtle thing. So then I realized if you actually wanted to steal a candy bar, you would take the candy bar, put it in your pocket, and then take out your phone as your like the pocket where your phone is. Then slip the candy bar in your pocket, and then take out your phone in one motion, and pretend like you're on your phone. Put it back in your pocket, and then walk out the door. You could do it right in front of like the manager. They wouldn't even notice because it's a natural movement. It's like what you're supposed to see when someone puts their hand in the pocket, right? That's a sleight of hand. I think that's kind of what the finders were. They were the sleight of hand. I think people drastically underestimate how powerful it is to train people in consciousness expansion, like Marion Petty could. No one can do this. Almost no one, except for this dude. He was doing it in like the 70s before the internet shit. Like there's so many truthers now, I think, because of the internet, so people can expand their consciousness that way. But back then, there was nothing like that. There was only like you would have to do games like this. Like I've actually done this. I mean, where like I think this is also why ancient tribes would have their men go out into the forest by themselves and survive. It's a consciousness expansion thing. I've done it. I've done this actually. One of my videos I talk about it. I went into the woods naked in the middle of the night and spent the whole night. And I saw some crazy shit and healed me of a bunch of stuff. Just one night of it. So it definitely expanded my consciousness. And he was doing all kinds of games like this. That's incredibly valuable for a intelligence agency or a government. So yeah, they definitely would care about what this guy's doing. Not because he ran a pedophile ring. There's hundreds of pedophiles. Half Congress are fucking pedophiles. They don't give a shit about that. The kids found in connection to the finders, they were doing something where all the stories on the finders, they say, oh, they found the two guys in a van with 6 kids. The kids were aged from 2 to 7. Okay, the kids had insect bites and were dirty, so they said they were not being cared for. And then when they asked the kids what they were eating, they said they would eat fruit and vegetables, and that was like supposed to be like child abuse. Think about what people are doing now. You want your kid to spend all of their time outside. They don't want kids. All like the progressive homestead moms and shit, homeschoolers. What do? They want their kids outside all the time. They're gonna have insect bites. They're gonna be dirty. They're gonna play outside, so they play with nature. They only eat fruits and vegetables because that's what's actually healthy, not candy bars, whatever. Like that was like the society was so fucked up. It's so fucked up. They think that's bad. They thought that was bad back in 1987. And then it didn't help that these satanic people were calling in as if you read the articles, like people would call in as anonymous informants saying that they were former Finders members, and that they did all kinds of satanic rituals. And they don't mention these people's names. They don't say who they were. And I guarantee you that they had nothing to do with the Finders. They were just trying to plant that information to feed the fire off. They had connections. Like what cult has connections in Hong Kong, North Korea, Vietnam, North Vietnam, during the Vietnam War? They always mention this one file that they found labeled Palestinian, and they specifically point that out. I think that's because it really said Israel on it, but they're not allowed to say that in papers because they had intelligence in Israel. This is a cult, a supposed cult, had intelligence agent people in Israel, in North Vietnam, in Russia, in Moscow, everywhere. Every like high I don't know, high watch level, I guess. I don't know. But they had agents all those places in Japan as well, and no cult does that that I know of. And they're collecting information, and they were doing it. They had these kids. All these kids were now geniuses, by the way, and they had them like using cell phones didn't exist in 1987, so they had these things. There's a computer called a TRS-80, and they were using it as like and the telephone lines to tap into the telephone lines and communicate like before the internet existed. And they were keeping like detailed documents of all this intelligence information that they were collecting from everywhere. And they it was like I don't know. It's in the file. It's a slog, real slog to get through all. I can find it if I maybe. Let's see. All right. Yep, this is it. They have these weird code names, like weird code that they talk in some of the parts. In other parts, they're talking about starting new new meetup locations or town renovations. Like they were trying to build up consciousness, and they were doing it, and they were a little too hippie about it. I think that's why it kind of people think they're still like a cult, but they all wore suits, and they only did the nature stuff when they were out in the middle of the woods. Like it's not like they were, and they had a picture of the other thing they had on them was they said they had pictures of them ritually sacrificing a goat, and I don't think that's what it was. They were butchering the goat and they ate the goat, and it was in winter. It was right before winter, and they were leaving the property. The goat would have just died, so they killed the goat. They wanted to teach the kids about death, about farm life, death, which is what you do when you little kids on a farm. They have to learn about death, so it happens. So that's what they did. They taught the kids about that. They took pictures of it, and a bunch of the other stuff they supposedly found at their places, I think, was planted by the D.C. detective, Metropolitan Police Department of D.C., James Bradley. I think he planted all the shit. He sounded like he was a little overzealous, and he was like quoting. He was like bringing up anonymous informants all the time, and he was in charge of securing the perimeter of the locations where the finders were, where their stuff was. So he easily could have planted shit. And it sounds like way too obvious. Like, why would they, if they're freaking intelligence people, why would they leave out like, I don't know. It seems like a bunch of it was added to their files, just to like make it seem like they were satanic. I don't know. Yeah, they have all this information on different talents that they think might be ready to elevate. Renovate old places, build the town back up. They're trying to help America, help society, not diddle kids. Bullshit. Uh, I didn't know. I forget what I was going to talk about that. But yeah. Anyway, and I think all that the pedo stuff about them is to destroy their reputation and split up their group because they were doing too much. They were working outside of the confines of the government, and they were doing good things that were good for society. And the most of the government, a lot of the government, are satanic ritual type people. Just look at the WikiLeaks; it's all in there. Um, like this is what the guy thought of. This was his like philosophy. Marion Petty. Uh, that's the title he gave himself, Petty, in the late 1970s. The Game Caller. It's based on the ultimate in game theory, the notion that all of life is a game made up of a series of subgames. If you were the instigator of the Big Bang, the ultimate source of oneness, the switcher on of the light, and were speculating on existence, how could you come up with something better than the game of life? Wouldn't you make yourself into billions of autonomy crazed versions of yourself, male and female? And wouldn't you trick yourself into believing, at least temporarily, that you were real and just flesh and blood? And wouldn't you want to play the games? Isn't that what we all do all day long? Play games and take them seriously? Sometimes we say we have to work or we're taking a vacation because we are so caught up in a particular game we're playing that we have forgotten who we really are and think we're not in charge. But they're all games. The money game, the family game, religion game, the nation state game, the politics game, the fame game, the believing and disbelieving game, the glass bead game, and ultimately, some part of ourselves judges how we played. And perhaps when we get back to the place where it all began, we shake our heads and laugh at our performance and decide that winner or loser, the game is so much fun that we might just want to play it all over again. And Game Color kind of demonstrates that humanity truly has nothing to fear. Uh, I don't know if I agree with this what I say here, but that we're literally playing a game. Uh, I don't know. I honestly just don't know. It sounds right, but I don't know. Uh, he was training incredible. Is how to train incredibly high conscious thinkers that can completely take over cities and towns and groups regardless of circumstance. Petty didn't want to give his group an actual name because giving it a name meant that they could be tracked and linked together. I doubt the people he trained would make the same mistake. In other words, they're essentially ghosts, and they're like tippy top of all the secret societies. Like when you read this book, you realize that they didn't actually have a name. They only got a name because somehow they got pressured into calling themselves something because they were just like a group in a room. It's like what? Some guy was like, what should I call you? And he was just like being funny. He said, just call us the Finders, because that's what they did. They found jobs for people. They found missing people. They found all kinds of stuff. They were finders. Um, and they never asked for money. They said, give me whatever you want. I don't care. At one point, they let people stay at their places. They owned a bunch of property, and they would let people stay there for free. The only caveat was every day they would ask the guy, "Do you have any money you want to give for staying?" And if they were like, "No," they'd be like, "Okay," and they leave. And like one guy, like he kept saying no, and then it got to his conscience, and he's like he had to like storm out because he couldn't handle not paying. Like it's like Marion Petty believed in the goodness of the person, that they'll put in what they need to put in, what they can what they can give, and it'll work out. That's kind of what he was saying. Um, uh, and I get more into Jesus, but like, how do I explain this? The reason why I know that they're not pedos, this Marion Petty guy, because he was doing the same shit Jesus was doing. He was reconnecting with the universal one being, the universal creator. That's why I know. You can see it throughout that whole book. Everything he does is in accordance with the creator. He's not doing shit to like, I don't know. He's like letting the universe decide what he's going to do every day. He's always moving different towns. Jesus did the same thing. Why do you think Jesus was always moving around? He was always moving around because he was following the universe, following the creator wherever the creator needed him. That's what this Marion Petty guy is doing. That's why I know for a fact they're not pedophiles. But I know that's kind of hard to explain to people. Like, I can't go more into it there. You can read the article if you want to. But let's see what else I could put out here. Yeah, okay. That's the end of that. But the reason why I got into this is because when I was looking through this, I have this theory that the CIA has been working out of Japan since the early 90s, probably before that, probably way before that. But they're putting out information through Japan. That's what I think. They're trying to raise consciousness through Japan because Hollywood, everything else in America it's taking it. The West is taking it. So they're trying to use Japan because they have somewhat of a connection to the West, and they're not going to break like the West does when they're, I don't know, hit with degeneracy like we are now. I mean, Japan's pretty degenerate, but Japan still has its value. It has like that military. It has a tribal values. They don't open their borders. They'll never open their borders. They've always been like that. Anyway, so they go to Japan, and one of the reasons why I think this is what brought me down this rabbit hole was the meaning of the word of the name Satoshi Nakamoto. I can't find this article anymore, but Satoshi Nakamoto is the name of the guy who supposedly invented Bitcoin, and he's Japanese. Excuse me. Satoshi means enlightenment, wisdom, or intelligence. Nakamoto means root, hit, center, origin. So Satoshi Nakamoto would be intelligence central intelligence, right? And if I think, after realizing this, I started thinking about like what media seems to be affecting the youth's consciousness more than anything else. And I think it's anime and manga. There's like the most famous I remember looking this up. The most famous comic book was like the most copies it sold was like, I don't know, 70 million, 70, I don't know, yeah, 70 million maybe. I forget the numbers, so don't quote me. But I remember the most famous Japanese manga or anime, One Piece, has sold like 516 billion copies worldwide in every different language. Kids love it. It actually is pretty good. Super long though. There's like 1,200 chapters. Anyway, but it's all about the whole manga, One Piece. It's about becoming sovereign. The whole thing is about being sovereign. Like, and the map of that place in One Piece is like identical to Rupus Negra. The 4 ways going into a reverse mountain. Here, I'll show you here. I say it in this horribly named video that I did, I don't know, a while ago. Check this out. That's the map of One Piece. Rupus Negra at the center. You got the 4 seas. They all go up here, and then once you go down there, you go to another realm. To the Rupus Negra mountain in the center. Look at all the old maps. It's 4 openings that go to the center of a mountain. It's like the same. The map is eerily similar to like a Hollow Earth type deal. I don't know. And that's just one manga, and it has all kinds of connections to real life. The whole thing's about pirates, and what rules our realm? The law of the pirates, the law of the sea, the law of the water. And the whole thing is about being a pirate and getting above that, becoming sovereign, above the law of water. So you can do what you want. But here's the caveat: is to be actually sovereign, you got to be the most powerful person in the world, and it has to be like not just physical, not just it has to be like the most powerful spiritually, the highest consciousness. That's how you become the sovereign. It's not like evil, like trying to do as thou wilt or any of that stupid shit. So you have to be worthy, basically, and that's what the whole manga is about. And it's sold more copies than the best comic book, the most widely sold comic book, by like 100 times. And every kid in the world reads this shit. It's definitely what is raising consciousness more than anything. And that's just one manga. There's other ones like that Hunter x Hunter that I always talk about. It has even more connections than this. And speaking of Hunter x Hunter, so I have that theory. CIA is connected to. They're putting stuff through Japan, and I had no real like connection to it. And I've always said that the Finders are the real CIA. They were the good CIA. They don't really exist anymore. Apparently, I think they don't exist anymore. Um, but they started all this shit. And I'm reading this, and they start asking about Marion Petty and what these kids were actually doing. Where are we at here? Shit. Okay, here it is. Page 57 of the FBI report. They go into it. Marion Petty is the oldest member. He is retired military and travels a great deal. No one knows where he is. He is described as a global thinker. Finders is in the information business, intelligence business, and does a lot of work for journalists. Presently, Finders is gathering information for Nippon Television, located in the National Press Building at Marriott, D.C. It is information that keeps Nippon Television better understand the stories they cover. Nippon Television, Japan's major television network. The Finders were giving Japan's television network information. They were feeding stories to them. Now, it could have been political stories. This is still loose. It's not a great connection, but it's there. They were in contact with Japan, with the television networks of Japan. Now, what is Nippon Television? They own Nippon TV. They own the same company. Go to animation. Where are we at here? These are all the anime they've developed. They've put out on Nippon Television. All these ones, all these, and then they got here Studio Gilby, whatever, which make like the best Japanese movies. Like pretty sure they made Spirited Away, which is like one of the most famous Japanese anime. Let's see, most famous movies that have won Oscars. I'm pretty sure. Where are they at? Oh yeah, Castle in the Sky. This one. Should have this prepared. Maybe. But they have these famous ones that were like they got Oscars and shit. Nope, that wasn't it. Bars. The Finders. Damn it, where the frig? Grave of the Fireflies. They did. I heard someone talking about one of the things that they did. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Oh yeah, Howl's Moving Castle. It's one of the most famous movies, Japanese movies ever in America. Spirited Away. That's what I heard. Someone was talking about that today. Spirited Away. 101, I think, was talking about. That's like one of the most famous Japanese anime movies ever. Nippon Television. They were talking to the Finders. Now, You know what else they've had? They've done where are we at? Hunter x Hunter, the one I'm always talking about. They own the company Madhouse, and they announced that they were going to do the anime in 2011. That's when the anime came out. 2011. They made the anime for Hunter x Hunter. Hunter x Hunter has more connections to Freemasons and intelligence agency and how the world actually works and all kinds of shit. They were in contact with the Finders. Like, it's definitely a connection. I mean, obviously it's kind of speculative still, but and a lot more stuff has to go into it for them to be responsible for it. But there's so much stuff in this manga that really is like a mirror to our world that someone has to be feeding them information, or the authors just really tapped into the truth. I don't know, but it seems like they're getting fed someone's feeding information into their system, their storytelling. That's what it seems like. Like, why call it Hunter x Hunter? Why use English words? Right? Anyway, that's the reason why I went down the Finders rabbit hole again. It's because I actually found evidence that the Finders, who I think were the real CIA, were in contact with Japan and feeding them information and stories for what it could have been just a political thing. Like they were just keeping them updated on how the politics in America work, or it could have been feeding them stories like that they could put into anime and shit. I don't know. I even like went to go because apparently the Finders have the last time they were seen was in an article in 1997 in Culpeper, Virginia. They were in Culpeper, Virginia, and they owned like a bunch of properties, and they were always wearing suits, and they would like change the sign names on the they own like movie theaters. They would change the sign name every day, and so and they would say like weird shit like uh I don't know, like don't pay your taxes or something. I don't know, just weird shit that they would put on there. And so I go check that to see what it says now on Google Earth, right? Check this out. Dragon Ball Z is the first thing on it. I mean, it's obvious that they're not putting random shit on there as if that was an actual movie, but just the coincidence that the first movie on there, if I just said they have a connection to anime with the Finders, is Dragon Ball Z. That's a freaking sign to me that I'm on to something. But yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to go over. Check the chat. Yo, what's up? Now it's dying out, I guess. I don't see what you guys are talking about, but that's cool. But yeah, I guess this is my last video for this trip, this Dragon Quest thing. I am gonna go there, but I'm probably gonna do it more at the end of the summer and be more serious about it, I guess. And I'm gonna start a season 2 when I get home tomorrow. Not specifically tomorrow, but coming up, and I'll have a lot more professional equipment and shit. But I hope you enjoyed the stream. Good night.